Adding and subtracting fractions without a common denominator requires a few extra steps. So you have to keep in mind that if you have two fractions, such as 1/3 and 1/2, you can add them together, but you end up with a total that there's no real name for it. So in this case, we've got 1/3 plus 1/2. Yeah, we can add those two pieces together, but what part of the whole is it? When we have fractions, each piece has to be the same size. So we need something over here with equal sizes so that we can see what what fraction this is of the whole. So we need to change each of these fractions into something with common pieces so that they're divided into the same number of pieces. And that's where our common denominator comes in. Can you see by looking at these two fractions what a common number of pieces each of these circles might be divided into so that we can see what the total is? 1/3 here and 1/2 here. One thing we could divide these two circles in is into sixths, because if we divide it into sixths, we would have something like this. This part would be divided into sixths, and this also would be divided into sixths. And then we would be able to tell what the total here would be. So we've taken each of these first fractions that we've had, each of the original fractions, and we've changed them into a different fraction. So this is no longer 1/3, it's now 2/6. This is no longer 1/2, it's 3/6. So what we did is we took equivalent fractions. So this is now 2/6, and this is now 3/6, and we add those together to get, just like before, we can add the numerators and keep the denominator the same. So the steps involved in adding or subtracting a fraction without a common denominator is, first of all, to find a common denominator. And I'm going to show you how you can do that with fractions where you're not sure what the common denominator is. So here we've got 1/3 minus 1/7. You might not be able to tell right off the bat what a common denominator might be. So in order to find that, we just find the multiples. Let's find all the multiples of 3. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, etc. And we'll find the common multiples of 7, or the multiples of 7. 7, 14, 21, 28. And we don't have to go any further because I can already see that there's a common one, and it's 21. So 21 is a common multiple of both 3 and 7. So we're going to change both these fractions into equivalent fractions with that denominator. So 1/3 is going to change into another fraction with an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 21. So in order to get from 3 to 21, I had to multiply this by 7. So I need to multiply the numerator also by 7. 7/21. So 1/3 and 7/21 are equivalent fractions. Same thing with 1/7. Let's change it to an equivalent fraction with 21 as the denominator. And I can see, I know that I get from 7 to 21 by multiplying it by 3. So I multiply the numerator by 3, and 1/7 and 3/21 are equivalent fractions. So now I can rewrite the equation with these two new fractions. 7/21 minus 3/21, and we end up with 4/21 for our answer. So the steps are to find a common denominator, or a common multiple of the two denominators. And one way to do it is just to multiply the denominators together. 3 times 7 is 21. It's going to be a multiple of both 3 and 7. Then you have to rewrite each fraction using the new denominator, and then you can go ahead and do the calculation. So let's just take a look at another example. 3/8 minus 2/5, a common multiple of 8 and 5. Well, 8 is going to be 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, and I think I'm just looking at it, it looks like 40 might be the common multiple. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and I could continue on, but I can see already that because none of these others are multiples of 5, that they're not going to be a common multiple. So I'm going to rewrite each of these fractions with a denominator of 40. So 3/8 is the same as something over 40. Well, I had to multiply the 8 by the 5 to get 40, so I multiply the 3 by the 5 to get 15. 2/5, right? Rewrite it as a fraction with a denominator of 40. 5 times 8 is 40. 2 times 8 is 16. So I'm going to rewrite this. 15/40 minus 16/40. That's going to leave us with -1/40, because 15 minus 16 is -1. Just one more thing to keep in mind. If you have a fraction that's a mixed number, you first must change them to improper fractions. Well, that's one way of doing it. You could also add the whole numbers and add the fractions together. But the other way to do it is to change them into improper fractions, 3/2 plus 4/3. Then change them to fractions with a common denominator. So this one is going to be 6 to 9/6 plus 2, 8/6. That's going to equal 17/6. And again, you would have to reduce that to simplest form. 17/6 would be the same as 12, that would be 2 and 5/6.